beat me to it.
Okay, so this is a bit of a test. Can you hear me there, Graham?
I can, mate.
How are you, Adam? How's your week?
It's been very, very good. I'm going to mute my TV screen so I don't get the repetition. Yeah, let's see if we can do that.
Good evening,
everyone.
Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about niche. Should we niche? Should we not niche? When should we niche? When shouldn't we niche? But before we start, as always,
if you could very kindly press in the bottom right-hand corner, you've got the little
plus icon. If you press that,
it'll come up with a number of people who are online.
Feel free to invite them to this chat. If they are available, they get a little ping. If they're not available, then they can decline it.
Simply decline it. It's just a way of being able to bring them into the chat
if they are available.
I hope
everyone's well.
Hope everyone's keeping good. It's been a busy week for me so far. But what about you, Adam?
Every week is a busy week for me, Graham. Every single week. I won't bore you with the details, but yeah, it has been a little bit insane. I guess as a way to start, this Clubhouse room, and also just to let everyone know that this is being recorded for YouTube. So if you do want to come up on stage, you are unconsciously giving us your consent to be recorded, just so everyone's aware of that. But this topic today is all about niching, and a topic that I think isn't spoken enough about, particularly for people training in hypnosis, is it a good idea to specialize early? Does it make sense to niche or not? I've got lots of opinions on this, but I guess just to start, Graham, for those people that don't know you, can you give us a quick introduction?
Absolutely. My name's Graham Webber. I'm a hypnotherapist. I've been doing hypnosis for around about the last 11 years.
I've been doing therapy for around 7 years. I'm also
a trainer at the UK Hypnosis Academy.
I'm the owner of Hypnosis Online Meetups, which is a monthly CPD online, taking different people through different modalities. So
they can see trainers while they fully train with them, and getting a small understanding of what their training may be. Adam, what about that?
Yeah, quick introduction. So my name is Adam Cox. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I have 3 main brands, all very niche brands in the area of hypnosis. So Phobia Guru is obviously specializing in phobias, Hypnoslimming specializing in weight loss, and Addiction Experts dealing with addictions. And later on in the room, I'll explain why I've got 3 entirely different niches. But for now, I'll just generate that incomplete curiosity to keep you hanging on tenterhooks there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a different way of being able to explain some things as well, which can go along this.
Obviously, I don't want to jump in too soon.
I keep everything going, but
I do believe some of this all depends on whereabouts we are on our hypnosis and such like as well. If you need hypnosis, then clearly you're gonna fall into one bound if you're well experienced, also fall into another one. But I do believe there's extra areas too.
Like I said, if you
have just joined the room at the bottom, please do feel free to invite them. And also, we welcome everyone on stage. As we did say, we are recording it.
But like I said, it's a complete safe area. Any
question, we give guidance. We allow any questions.
And it's a safe
place to talk. At the end of the day, it's just a room where we can all go.
We're recording it so that
later on you can also capture up your information, back up on this information, because hopefully in the next 56 minutes we'll be able to share some tips which we believe will be able to build up your business a little bit better too. So Adam, as you just mentioned, you have three business names which have all been niched. To niche or not to niche? That is the question.
It is, and you're certainly paraphrasing good old William there in that kind of phrase. For me, my take on it is that this is something that I feel isn't just useful, but is essential. That's my overall setting out my stall. My background of why I believe that actually doesn't come from hypnosis at all. It actually comes from my first proper business, which was a PR company. And that PR company, I was working at a PR company that did broadcast PR. So they would get people on radio and TV and occasionally regional press. And I found out that the bit that I understood the most, because I had a background in radio, was radio PR. So I read many, many books on branding before at the age of 23 launching my own agency. And the thing that kept coming up from a guy called Al Reese, and he now does a lot of work with his daughter, Laura Reese, on branding. He wrote books on 22 Immutable Laws of Branding, was that it is better to be number one in a small pond than number 2 or 3 in a huge pond. And you see this sometimes. You see the power of being a dominant brand in any sector, and that quite often if you're 3 or 4 down the pecking order, then you don't hang around for very long. So when I set up my agency, I decided that I wanted to be a niche within a niche within a niche, and I set up a radio media relations agency. But it gave the positioning to me of being number one in the marketplace. And when I launched, I said I was the number one radio PR specialist at the time, because there wasn't anyone specializing in that tiny niche. And I'm able to grow the brand, purely because I was such a specialist. And the metaphor that I bought into when I decided to niche very early on in business was the parable of, the one-eyed man is king in the kingdom of the blind. And that really stuck with me, that if you have a little bit more knowledge than everyone else, you can become an absolute leader. So there I was at the age of 23, and my limited world experience meant that if I went toe-to-toe with the big agencies, I would have really been ruined. But because I was knowledgeable about this tiny little niche, I was able to do quite well. When I became a clinical hypnotherapist, I took that same mindset of the more you specialize, the more competent you can be, the more knowledge you can have, and it's easier to market yourself. I took that into hypnosis. So for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. You need to specialize.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree on what you're saying there.
I completely agree with you. For anyone who doesn't know, yes, I just gave an introduction of how long I've been doing hypnosis for, but at the same time, I also have a background in the military. I've been serving in the military for the last
19 years just gone.
So as well as being able to niche, it makes it a little bit more difficult, because although I can work with who I need to, I can't always guarantee that I'm going to be available all of the time due to my work background. Which then means as well I have to be able to balance everything up in that way. So as much as I do niche towards the anxiety background, I haven't necessarily niched upon the niche. I don't need to do therapy for money. I'm lucky enough that I've got a good enough wage coming in all the time. But what I am doing is I'm building up my name for the work that I do with therapy, in order to be able to achieve much more when I finally leave the services and have big enough background, which no one tends to think about as well.
So, Adam, obviously, when you come to niche, you've got a Cox hypnotherapist or anything like that, you've specifically gone the whole hog. You've got your URLs, you've got your website, you've got your PR, lo and behold, due to your expertise. And a lot of this led to a lot more findings. It's kind of rewind to back when we very first started talking with you on Clubhouse to know you more. This app didn't just help for you with clients. It actually helped with you for a much wider branch of getting noticed, didn't it?
It did, and for my take on it is that I knew that I had to niche. I just knew that to survive in business, you've got to be known for being competent in a particular area. I just didn't know 2 key things. One, what I was naturally going to be most competent at. I didn't know that. And secondly, I didn't know what the market needed. So for me, the purpose of having 3 brands in entirely different sectors, but all very specialized, was purely on the basis that I wanted to effectively, use marketing terminology here, split test. I wanted to figure out, one, what I was good at, and secondly, what did consumers want? What did the market need? Because I think sometimes the danger of picking a niche is that you pick a niche that you are obsessed about, you're passionate about, but then there isn't a demand for it. And then you don't have any clients, and then you start taking any clients, and then you very quickly become a generalist. So when I set up my different brands within hypnotherapy, that came from me looking at about 100 different websites of hypnotherapists. I went on the GHR, I went on the hypnotherapy directory, looked at website after website after website, and found that at least 90% of hypnotherapists are generalists. And they say, right, well, that they think they're specializing because they're a hypnotherapist, but they haven't owned a niche within hypnotherapy. So they say, I can help with, and typically there's a list of about 50 different conditions, everything from blushing to nail biting to weight loss to anxiety. And if that's the first thing that a client potentially sees is a list of everything and anything, then they don't have confidence in your competency or expertise in the one particular thing that they have a problem with. And I always use the medical analogy that you wouldn't see a GP if you had a heart condition. You wouldn't see a dermatologist if you had, I don't know, some kind of brain tumor or something like that. You want to go to an absolute specialist in that area. And if you went to a website of a private medical practitioner and they said, oh, I specialize in heart disease, lung issues, digestive problems, skin issues, you're going to leave that website straight away because you have no confidence that they have any credibility in that area. So that's how important I think it is. If you're in the audience right now and you've got something to say about niching, maybe you have a niche, maybe you don't know what your niche is yet, raise your hand, we'll get you up on stage. Or if you want to ask us any questions about niching, raise your hand, we'll get you up on stage. Just to let you know, this is being recorded and also live streamed on YouTube. So if you don't consent to that being shared, don't put your hand up and don't come up on stage. But if you're happy with that, raise your hand, ask a question, or just share your take on niching.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Anyone who does come up, we're not going to push you into any corners of asking questions. Like we said, we're very keen to keep a nice safe place where they can talk.
And the wonderful Irene's come up.
Irene, thank you for sharing a little of your stories on Instagram just recently. What do you niche, or do you choose to niche?
Hello, I hope you can hear me okay because my internet's not very good tonight.
Yeah.
So
clear.
Oh, fab. So as I've already got a coaching qualification and I'm still training in my hypnosis, I already have a niche, and I think it can certainly. Whenever I qualified as a coach, it presented quite a challenge to actually nail that niche down, and it is quite scary to think about who am I going to specialise in, and am I going to specialise in something. But it certainly was important to me because I thought I want to. It links back to my story, and the niche that I've chosen is self-love. So that links into my story. It's what I know. It's the experience I have, life experience, and it's how it's the subject, links the subjects that I can guide someone through and be an expert and be a specialist in that. And I think, if someone's coming to your website and they see that maybe you're a hypnotherapist, but you also do things like NLP or coaching, and it kind of narrows it down and nails it down to people that are going to resonate with what you do. So, but I think that's important for me. But I can see why people may not want to niche, because then it leaves them open that they can choose to work with whoever they want to work with. It leaves them open to working with anybody. I think there's pluses and minuses for both.
Yeah, I think that's
a personal decision, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's true, Irene. I think one of the key fears of niching is that you're leaving so many clients on the table, and there's that fear of loss that kicks in. And I think back prior to COVID, when the majority of hypnotherapists saw clients face to face, their niche in a way was the region, the town that they were in. So effectively, if you're in a town and there's only 2 or 3 hypnotherapists, then it makes sense to be a hypnotherapist to anyone in your region. The problem is that COVID and now all sessions virtually taking place over Zoom means that we've all got the same geography. We've got the whole country and potentially the whole world to work with. So the benefit of niching now has never been so benefit, because there might be a client in need in your town that is working with someone else in the States because they specialize in the particular condition they've got an issue with, even if there's a hypnotherapist down their road. So I think that fear of leaving clients on the table, I would say, was more valid in the past when there was more of a geographical role to play for the hypnotherapist. I think that's changed now, and I think it's more important than ever. Quick question, because when I think about niching, I think about the area rather than the tools that you would use. So I wouldn't necessarily think it's an issue to say, right, well, you do hypnotherapy and NLP and CBT to help with the issue. I think the key niche really is the problem that you're working with, because then a lot of clients don't even care if it's NLP or hypnosis. Do you find that they ask you lots of questions about the tools that you're using, or is it more about how self-love can help them with their, kind of self-esteem or the issue that you're working with them on?
Yeah, there is something in that they don't really care what you're going to do with them. They just want the results, and if I can give them hypnosis or if I can give them coaching and NLP, then they're happy as long as they get the results and they get fixed, so to speak. I agree with that geographical thing. I think that as well, that when people come to me is they come to me because they know that I can empathise with their journey and where they've been, and I think that can be important to people as well. I'm in favour of niching.
Hugely important, and I think that comes from almost like the positioning story. A lot of you see this on kind of people doing workshops or kind of pitching from the stage, but they've got a story as to why they do what they do, and the reason why that's such an important part of that journey is that everyone is cynical, and they're looking at that person in front of them on the stage, in the media, and they're saying, well, why would I trust you to help me in this area? And if you've been through the very challenges that they're going through now, but you've figured a way out, or you've helped other people figure a way out, then suddenly you are the go-to resource for their problem, because there's nothing more relatable than if you've been in the same situation that they're in. So for my Phobia Guru brand, whenever I'm in the media talking about it, I start off with why I specialize in phobias, that I was crippled by anxiety, that my phobias limited my life to the extent that I was in my own prison of my own making. And when you talk about the severity of anxiety that's caused by these kind of phobias, you enter their world. There is no bigger rapport builder than the empathy that comes from experiencing what the client is currently experiencing. But ideally, you've gone through that process and found a way out. And I think that's such a powerful part that you get from niching that you can't get if you don't understand the area that you're specializing in.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the other thing as well is,
yes, we're just talking about niche.
Niche. The best way to be able to niche is by having proof in the pudding. Having testimonials on your website that people can come back to. As I was kind of getting to before, Adam's not just known as a therapist for his work. He's known because he's been the go-to person for the BBC to have radio interviews. He was on the Victoria Derbyshire show and many other bits as well. But having these videos
would instantly put you worlds apart between just being
a village therapist, so to say, and a worldwide therapist too.
So again, that sort of information. And how do you get it? I know some people who literally put it into the sessions and it comes to the end.
You just pull up
a video camera stand, or on Zoom they can literally say,
right now I'm going to record. I just ask you a few questions. I want your serious answer. Many different ways, and obviously the online ways.
Much more the easiest bit.
much more the easiest. You don't need fancy video editing as well. Video editing can be a good little tool to have, but sometimes over editing something will
something's been fabricated in order to make you sound even better than what you want. So exactly what Adam and yourself there, Irene, said. Just be yourself, show what you can do, and show how you can work things, and share the best interests with everything as well. So
Irene, thank you very much for sharing. Irene, thanks very much for sharing. Have you got anything else you wish to share along them lines?
You're welcome. No, there is one thing, is for anybody who's thinking about not niching. I have had RTT done, and the lady that I went to for that, she didn't specialise. She didn't have a niche. She just did RTT. So I went to her for the results that gave. And that was not through niching. So I think it depends what you really want it for and what you want the results to be at the end of it. But thank you for giving me the space to speak.
No, anytime.
Welcome anytime. And I think that comes down to something as well, that at that time that you have to find someone. You probably don't know what RTT is. You may not have known what RTT was at the time. Rapid transformational therapy, for anyone who doesn't know, is the background. You would have gone online and you may have searched for whatever it was you wanted to work with for that session, and that may have been the first thing that popped up. It may have been the first thing that was within your price range. There's a multitude of factors that may have unconsciously gone along with that for you in order for you to think about selecting it. And that's obviously a big purpose as well. When it comes to niching, should you put your prices up? Should you? Obviously, this comes a bit more to website. There's many different things, but having the niche, having someone to say something in place, and I'm sure everyone in here, hypnotherapists had it. You have a client, and so I work predominantly with anxiety, and I did a typical thing: listen to what the first thing is they say, and instantly I could have a very good memory for clients. So as soon as I hear something, I will start to regurgitate the information that another client may have said to me. Not obviously from their own words, but an experience of what they had.
Then what you'll tend to find is that anxiety kind all of a sudden goes, it's like you know me. Well, I'll be honest, it's not that. I know the symptoms because I've worked with so many people who have exactly the same symptoms as you. And therefore, what I did is this. And it puts you into a much better and stronger place. How does that sound? Obviously, you're then going to the yes setup. Yeah, it sounds great, and we can work from there. Thank you for leaving that. Oh, Sally. And also, like I said to anyone else, if you're new in hypnosis, if you've got any questions about how can you find your niche, how can you do this sort of thing, Sally, my lovely. How the devil are you?
Okay, thank you. Sorry I joined late. I was doing an IEMT overview with Matt Kendall. So
lovely.
Oh yeah. It was his. So Matt was on my. Matt was on my. He advertised, and you removed negative memory, wasn't it?
Yeah, negative memories. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. So anyway, to get back to the point of the room to niche, yeah, I think I'm sort of struggling about what to niche in, if that makes sense. So I guess my question is should it be something that I want to niche in as such and I enjoy doing, or is that more controlled by the market for what other people want, I guess?
That's a great question.
That was just my question, really. So
yeah, I mean that's the question I struggled with to begin with, because if you niche into two, if you really kind of really niche within a niche, potentially you've got very, very few clients that you could potentially work with that would have a need for you. So you've got to do a little bit of, I guess, market research, looking at who else is out there, doing certain things to kind of figure out how big that niche is. But at the same time, you know, the sweet spot for me is to kind of think, right, how do you niche, but there's still going to be plenty of people that have that issue. So when I decided to have my niche of phobias, I thought, right, well, there's at least 100, you know, I went on these phobia list websites. I could see 100 different phobias. Okay, only probably about 50 or so were kind of legitimate. There's a lot of made up phobias out there, but there's still a lot of different phobias. So if I would have specialized just in snake phobias, I'd probably be struggling for clients. But because I specialized in phobias, what it meant is on the website, I could have a different landing page for each different phobia. Because the thing is, if you've got arachnophobia, you're not interested in searching for a general phobia specialist. You want someone that seems to know what they're talking about specifically with spider phobias. So that's one of the benefits, I think, of having a broad niche, but the ability to niche within that niche. So having different landing pages for each sub area, because that way you can have a dedicated page of content that helps with SEO and Google finding you. It helps with having a landing page if you're going to do any pay-per-click or anything like that. So there's lots of benefits. One of my other brands, Addiction Experts, I thought, well, clearly there is a association that hypnotherapists are good with addictions, because we all know at least a few people that used to smoke and don't smoke anymore because they've seen a hypnotherapist. But smoking is just one addiction, and there's lots of different addictions. So again, I had a different landing page for each different addiction. For me, a lot of the media coverage that I got, Sally, came from the obscure addictions. So like binge watching on TV, or playing too much video games, or shopping addictions. And the reason for that is that I was one of the few people that had a web page about shopping addictions or about video game addictions. So I came up really highly on Google, and that's why you don't want to have a niche that is too broad. So if you just said anxiety, for example, well, you're competing with a lot of content on Google. So you'll probably be on literally kind of page 10. And to give you an idea, my third brand, Hypnoslimming, which is weight loss hypnosis, even when I had about 50 odd pages worth of content specifically around weight loss, I was on page 13 on Google if you put weight loss hypnosis. So that wasn't niche enough. It certainly wasn't niche enough. I mean, there's a very lame joke in the SEO world, which is the best place to bury a dead body is page 2 of Google, because nobody goes there. So page 13 of Google, you know, it's kind of like, what chance do you have? So I would say you want to use things like Google, put the niche in that you're thinking of into Google and see who comes up. And if there's a lack of content there, but you think there's a market there and you've got that interest, maybe that's a good area to niche in. You have to, I would say what you don't want to do, Sally, is fall into the trap of chasing what you think's lucrative and what you think's, you know, the biggest market. If you don't have any interest in it, if you don't have any knowledge on it, as Irene was saying, if you've got no personal story that relates to that, I would say, well, you're not going to be congruent. You're not going to be passionate or enthusiastic enough about it. So, you know, if you're thinking of it as a bit of a Venn diagram, you want to be thinking, right, you've got what you're interested in, and then you've got the kind of niche that people really have a need for. And that bit that overlaps, that's probably the sweet spot that you want to be building a niche. And if in doubt, set up 2 different niches, 2 entirely different brands, and let the market vote on what they want more of.
Yeah, good. That's a good.
And if you're really in doubt, in doubt, set up 3 websites, and then really let them figure it out.
Yeah.
I completely agree with Adam there.
Sorry, go on, Graham.
I was just going to
say, I completely agree with Adam there. The fact that you need to, if you work on what you enjoy working,
you always do the better job. You know, I advertise myself.
So I advertise myself as an anxiety specialist, but I still do a lot of work with weight loss as well, because
it was one of the big things myself. So I
relate to when I first had hypnosis, and
I get
really good results.
I've recently thought of setting up multiple websites, but then it comes down to time and things that, like I said back at the start, I haven't necessarily got.
So think about what it is you've been working on. What gets your best results?
What is it that makes someone
tell someone else?
For me, that's a big one.
And if not, you can always niche within your website or wherever it may be, landing pages and stuff like that as well, that can make things land onto the point where people end up finding you. So that also comes down to experience of websites or having a website manager of someone who can put you into said line.
Yeah, I mean, I've been having a good deal of success with confidence. In different. So I guess confidence is quite a wide thing. It can cover a lot of things. Personal, business, a lot of things really. So that's what I'm thinking of at the moment. And I do have somebody that can do some different landing pages on my website. So it might be worth doing, I don't know, a couple, and then just try it and see, if there's anything, that comes out of that maybe.
The other thing, Sally, just from a marketing perspective, is to think about if you're going to have a brand, because if you just use your name, that's not going to rank very highly. So even if you specialize on that, so what I learned very early on in SEO is that you want to have your keyword in the actual URL, the actual domain name. So if you want to specialize in confidence, then you could call yourself the Confidence Queen or something like that, or the Confidence Expert, and then that's actually going to mean that when people put the keyword of confidence in, you're going to rank higher. That's how the algorithms work. And then if you've got lots of content on there about different areas of confidence, because this area of confidence relates to a lot of people. Some people might be confident at home, but they're not confident at work, or they're not confident enough to ask for a promotion, or they're not confident enough to stand on a stage. So each of these areas of confidence could be a different landing page, could be different social media content that you produce. And the other benefit as well of specializing like that is digital marketing is quite expensive if you have generic things. So if you wanted to pay for the keyword hypnotherapist, it's going to be quite expensive, and you've got no guarantee that people clicking that are going to be interested in what you specifically do. But if you specialize in confidence hypnosis and you only pay 50p a click or whatever for people that are actually specifically looking for the phrase confidence hypnosis, those are going to be reasonably good quality leads that are probably worthwhile, because you're only going to select the keywords that people are actually looking for. And then if they visit your site and your site is full of confidence hypnosis and how hypnosis can unlock confidence and the benefits of that confidence in their life, that's probably going to convert into good quality clients. So, there's a lot to be gained, not just from a competency level, because obviously we all know that 10,000 hours kind of approach, if you specialize in a particular area, you get better at it. But also from a marketing point of view, if you're creating content and you're searching for clients in a particular niche, then they're going to convert higher because they're looking for the very thing that you have, and therefore they're more likely to work with you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've been talking quite a lot about confidence on Clubhouse rooms, and mostly in not women's only, but women's groups. And I have been contacted about doing a guest expert slot on confidence. So the only thing with that is this person, it will be on their website as a part of their membership group. So it's whether I do that or not, I'm debating at the moment, but I guess if I get...
Sorry to jump in there, Sally, but never ever be scared just to ask that person whether you can have a copy of that content as well. You know me from... and you know that when I hosted Adam a couple of weeks back,
he simply asked me, "Do you mind me taking
a copy of this content as well?" Not at all. Because at the end of the day, you're both collaborating. If they say no, it also makes you question whether you should actually be working with them in the first place. Personally, obviously what you can say is, I'm not going to put it into any direct light as to where yours would be. I would appreciate the content. So,
I think the feedback
about that.
What's it called? Yeah,
I would say to them, look, I'd just like a copy of it myself to be able to utilise within my website or something where people can listen to and find out more about me.
The other thing is,
you could just simply say, I'm not going to use all the content. I just want to get some snippets of information which I can use as a point of
Adam, I'm sure you've got some more on that.
Adam, I'm sure you.
Yeah, my thoughts is that, effectively, if you're invited to speak to someone else's audience, I mean, that is a huge source of credibility. They're trusting you in front of their audience. So even if you can't get hold of the content, that's a privileged position. Definitely take advantage of that. Plus, even if you can't get the content that you're recording, you could easily record your voice. Even if you could have a camera on you can record that content for you, even if it's not the bit that goes out on those. But also you can do selfies and screen grabs and tell your story on social media, and when you're invited to speak, whether it's in a Clubhouse room, whether it's on a webinar, I do lots of summits, there's so much credibility. I share that kind of shit all over social media because effectively it elevates my position that I'm being invited to talk on my particular niche in these different areas. So even if, I've spoken on lots of summits where I don't get that content, but I don't care because I've just spoke to 200 people that they've got in a room for me. So I'm grateful for that. So there's lots of benefits, but what I tend to find is that the more you niche, the more invitations you get to speak at events because they don't want generalists. They want people to speak. And you've got to think, like, if someone wanted to have a hypnotherapist speak at their event, where do they even start? There's too many hypnotherapists out there. I think I did some research and there's like 60,000 hypnotherapists on all the hypnotherapy directories. So you're one fish in a very, very big ocean at that point. But if they're looking for a confidence hypnotherapist that helps women, you might be, Sally, on a list of 5, in which case you're more likely to get way more opportunities because that's what they're looking for when they're looking for that kind of thing. So huge benefits to basically,
Yeah, it is a women's, her membership are women over 40, which is the sort of people that I want to work with. So I asked one question in this Clubhouse room and straight away she contacted me on Instagram and said, I liked your question. Would you like to do a guest expert spot? So it was a bit like, okay, it came out of the blue, but I need to read up a bit more.
I would say
Sorry?
Yes. I would just say yes.
Okay.
If I were you, Sally, because the thing is, you're going to learn a lot from that experience anyway. You get an opportunity to speak to their audience. If you start coming back and saying, "Oh, I'll do it," but if I can get content and if I can get that, then it kind of sours what could be a really good long-term working relationship where you get loads more speaking opportunities. So I for me, when I'm asked to speak and go to summits, I generally say yes and then figure out what's going on afterwards, rather than, playing, this kind of, because even if you're not a diva, it can be perceived to be diva-ish if you're saying, but what, am I going to get paid? And do I get access to the list and all this kind of, can I keep the content? Suddenly you become less attractive as someone that they can just go to and say, come on, speak, because you've got to think, how much time and resources would it take you to get, 35 people that you can speak to in one go? And that kind of is just there, you're being offered it. So, and I think the more you speak at these kind of events, the more you get known, and then there'll probably be someone else in that audience that also organizes something. They're impressed, they want you to speak, and that's how these things work. You can build a name for yourself very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, she's got it quite well organized in terms of you have to do an application and there's certain things that she wants from you, certain things that she wants. So it's very well organized, and she does give you benefits from it. So it's not that I've asked for content, I just asked for more details, and she sent me all that. So it's just me going through it, and I think it's a good opportunity for me personally. So I think I'm going to do it. I just need to go a bit more into it and think about what I'm actually going to do. But yeah, thank you very much.
No worries.
Just gotta be confident.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, I know, and it's not that I'm not confident about doing it. It's, I guess
It's something different. It's the next step. It's your next step to becoming that specialist, a full all-round specialist. So go out there, smash it, just like I know how you will do.
Totally.
Okay,
Thank you for bringing them up. Here she is. It was a birthday last week.
It was a birthday last week. She's back on board again. Oh, Irene, was you about to say something then, was you?
I was just about to say to Sally to just own it, Sally, and just be the authority, and show your confidence. I think it's great, and it's a great opportunity for you to be visible, because when you're visible to other people, that's when you get them coming to you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Irene. Yeah, she's got a Facebook group as well, and I think there's 500 and odd members in there, which may not be a lot in a lot of people's eyes, but it's quite a lot of people. So yeah, I am going to do it. It's just a matter of working out the content and what she wants and what I can give her. So yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. No worries, Catherine.
Catherine, how?
Oh, you went off then, Graham.
Did I?
Yeah, just to what to say to Sally. So we've had a couple of opportunities. Steve Daly asked us, put us in touch with someone from Birmingham Radio randomly, and we did an interview on Birmingham Radio. And like Adam was saying, we didn't say beforehand, but when we'd done the interview, at the end of it, we asked him if we could have a copy of that, which we have now got, and we can put on our YouTube channel. Also, Kaz Riley asked us if me and John would get hypnotised for one of her courses. And again, we didn't really ask her, we just had a meeting with her and everything. And then at the end of it, she said that she was quite happy for us to have it, so long as we didn't post it at the same time. We just kept hold of it for a little while, let her have it on hers for a little while, and then put it on. And then also, I just have done speaking in other people's groups on Facebook here locally, and it does get people, not only clients, but it also gets people into whatever group you've got to channel them to. So it does get you seen as that specialist maybe in your little area. So I think it's definitely worth doing. But, you don't have to put it to them as if I'm not going to do it unless you give it me. You build that relationship first and then do it for them. And then afterwards, when it's been done, you ask them if there's any possibility. That's what we found anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thanks, Kath. Thank you.
That law of reciprocity, isn't it? Kind of, once you've done them a bit of a favour, done something good, it's so easy for them to kind of reciprocate that. So good call. Catherine, what do you niche in, or is the intention for you to kind of niche more in the future?
We niche in mostly grief. Well, we advertise as grief and anxiety, but we tend to get a lot more anxiety people than grief people. So I don't know what that says about niching, really.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's one of those things that, what Sally was saying before in terms of finding out what the market needs. And it might be that, there's more of a need, out there for people helping with anxiety. When I was doing some keyword searches, anxiety hypnosis had something crazy like, it was hundreds of thousands of kind of searches for that particular phrase. I think just anxiety alone was going into the millions per month that people search. So definitely that is a phrase that people are really dealing with and want help with. So, I mean, that could give you a clue that maybe there's a bigger market there on the anxiety than the grief side. But again, it's finding that balance of what you're enthused by, what you want to do, but also what there's a need for.
Yeah, I think with grief as well, people struggle in the way that it's often seen as quite a private thing. So we have found that some of the anxiety people have come as being anxiety, but actually underneath it is grief, but they perhaps didn't want to, they perhaps weren't aware that it's past grief that's perhaps not being dealt with. So.
I think, doesn't anxiety go with grief though, Kath? Having lost my sister to breast cancer, I know that I felt that caused me anxiety in certain situations as well, though.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people, I think it's not in our society that people like to talk about grief a lot, especially if it's old grief. It's as if you get that period of time that you're allowed, and then you're meant to be okay and getting on with your life. So I think sometimes people are reluctant to admit that that's what the core issue is, because maybe it's 5 years or 10 years or even longer since that person died. But then you find out that although they've come for anxiety, that's where their anxiety stems from. And it definitely happened to me, you know, so.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's, I was going to say something that's just gone out of my head, but, you know, with grief, I mean, it'll be 4 years this year, but it can be just such a little thing that happens that just takes you back to that grief, that just hits you, and you can just burst into tears over just a little thing. And you only get given by a lot of people a certain amount of time to, okay, well now, get over it. You know, it shouldn't be affecting you after that amount of time. But who says that? Who decides that? You know, in my eyes, who tells you how you should grieve for people?
Yeah, definitely. That's most of my message on TikTok, Sally.
Yeah, no, I know. I've seen all that. It's just, just something that can happen on the TV, and I just look over to the picture, and you know, sorry, I'm going to go in a minute, but it just, maybe that's where the anxiety is, that it can be such a small thing, and you never know when you're going to be affected. Does that make sense with you, that it could be in?
Yeah, definitely. I think that you make a plan for the days that you're going to know are difficult, like the birthday or the anniversary, but then you can't be in control of a song on the radio or something somebody says, and I think that's why it's so difficult. That it is, you know, a lot of people like to be quite organised, or not controlling, but they like to know what's going to happen, and it's something that can really take you unawares. I think that's why people struggle.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting point. And also, along this theme of niching, when you do specialize in something, it makes content creation a lot easier. So those TikToks that you do a lot easier if you're consistent with that, because people tend to follow people on social media with a message or a theme that they align with. So again, there's that kind of secondary benefit as well. Rowan, we've got you up on the stage. What's your question, or what's your point?
Hi guys. Yeah, it was just off the back of what Sally and Catherine are saying. The anxiety in itself is a future pace of a past problem. So really, any trauma that's unresolved and any belief that's created around that trauma from the stories that we tell ourselves after the trauma happens cause the programs that create the anxiety in the future. And in the Kabbalistic system, this is the spinning wheel of Netzach and Hod and Yesod. But it's really an important part of doing this sort of work, I think, is to understand that these anxieties are programs effectively in the amygdala that are causing these anxiety responses. And they're protection programs. And really, you know, if someone's passed away, you might be concerned about possibly having a similar disease, especially if it's someone in your family or things like that. So they're valid protection programs, but they're not serving us in the right way. And this is where hypnosis can be so powerful, I think, is actually looking at these programs and sort of re-educating that part of the mind and doing parts integration and things like that. So I think it's a really fascinating aspect of our work, is looking at these ways that the past is affecting the future and bringing ourselves back to the present. So I think I thought it was worth sort of pointing that out.
Yep, totally agree with that. Just from my experience working with a lot of phobia clients, in a lot of cases, what the key cause of their anxiety isn't the actual, stimulus, an animal, a situation. It's the memories that they've got of when they were feeling anxious and panicky in those situations, and constantly, almost what I call the meerkat effect, constantly on guard for anything that looks like it might be a similar thing to the thing they've experienced before, that future pacing that you're talking about. So completely agree with that kind of way of looking at it. And if, when I work with clients on that, I say, well, look, if I got rid of all those memories that cause anxiety and you could think about the future without thinking anxious, that would probably get about 98% of your anxiety around this phobia away, wouldn't it? And it's always like a yes response to that. Because the actual thing, I worked with a lady who had a fear of snakes. I said, how many snakes have you seen in the last year? She was thinking about snakes every single day, and she'd seen one in the last year. You know, so most of it was kind of memories or this kind of future pacing, and that was causing the anxiety. But anyway, we've gone slightly off topic there. Roman, what's your niche? What do you tend to specialize in?
I really I started this work with PTSD, and that's really where my heart lies, is dealing with that sort of trauma. And the first case I did was my mother's PTSD over my brother's birth while I was training, and I cleared it in a single session and checked for 7 years between that and her passing away, and it never came back. And it was the power of going through that experience with her was really one of the drivers for me to do this as a career, instead of just learning it to help myself and help my family. So PTSD and trauma are a big part of what I do.
That's amazing. Yeah. And again, I think that kind of personal story, do you tend to share that kind of personal story as to why you specialize in that area, or is that just something private that you keep for yourself?
No, definitely. I think it's really powerful to share these stories with clients, because it lets them see that, you know, something they might have been holding on to for like half their life, their whole life, maybe even, you know, is actually not that hard to get rid of in certain cases, you know. And I think quite often people have this belief, because of mainstream medical and psychology telling them that PTSD is a lifelong condition and they're going to need treatment for the rest of their life, or medication or something like that. And it's really about, you know, the actual incident that causes the trauma is not really the trauma. It's a heightened state of presence when we're in that car accident or dealing with that problem with our child's birth or whatever it happens to be. And it's the meaning-making part of the mind tells itself a story afterwards. I'm actually writing an article on this just now, and you know, it's this heightened state of presence in these experiences that we have open our mind. They shut down the default mode network and open up our minds to an extremely profound learning state. And then when we tell ourselves this story about what this means, this accident, this experience that we've had, whatever it is, that's where we're giving ourselves a story. We're giving ourselves a really powerful suggestion. And that's where the trauma actually gets created. So it's a fascinating way of looking at this, in that we're actually removing self-hypnosis from people with trauma.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Fascinating stuff. I'm actually working on something now about the role of stories in self-sabotage when it comes to weight loss, so I can certainly relate to that. Graham, I think we lost you for a second. Are you back with us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I've lost it. Yeah, I've disconnected off Zoom that as well. I don't know what's going on with the internet. It's just all of a sudden dropped out. Because where I live, it's slowly coming back. But where I live, I have to use 4G on everything. And if there's a little bit of a drop of internet, then that's it. But from what I could hear, for everyone, thank you very much for sharing them points. And it really does. It really just go to show that as small as the audience can be during these each week, the information that we get that goes with it is brilliant, and how everyone's
got a similar journey. Obviously, with everything that we're going through, I think the key thing as well, enjoying what you're doing. And if you are enjoying it and you've got your niche in place, where or whatever it be, obviously, Kath, you mentioned before with grief. I think if grief isn't necessarily getting out there, it's about passing the next message down of where in your grief works is, you know, immediate family members, further family members, whichever one it may be that works for you. And then going back from there, like I said, I don't necessarily practice it as much myself, just due to my other work. But with it is, you know, as Adam said, find a URL, get the URL which has your name into it. If you can ever get talking like Sally is, at least then if you can get it talking and get the link and get it to backlink it to your website, all these little bits of SEO expert and talk wherever you possibly can, even if it is just a 10-minute thing, and share it. And likewise, you know, when you are on stuff like this, just like what Irene did with us before, and shared it, talking with people who then could potentially be welcoming you back in order to to do a talk as well, because if you're sharing your information and then other people, you're getting under their noses for sharing that information, you're all of a sudden going to become that SME, that subject matter expert, who will be tapped upon for even more information in the near future. So like I said, it's really good to see some new faces as well in the audience. So everyone, welcome and thank you for this. Unfortunately, looking at the time, we've only got about 5 minutes left. But I really do hope. I wasn't too sure how many people would turn up for this, because niching does tend to get talked about quite a lot. But it also goes to show that it's always learn things which can either be misconstrued or just always more information wanting to be known about niching. So I really do thank you all for joining. Adam, have you got anything? You're always the best one at summarising.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't hear a single person say that niching was a bad idea. So maybe this was a bit of a no-brainer topic to talk about. Generally, I think there's loads and loads of benefits. And the one, let's say, consequence of niching is this perception that you're leaving clients or you're leaving money on the table. And I don't think that's a valid point, particularly in this world where we can work with clients wherever they are, and I found this prior to COVID with my phobia brand. I was working with clients all over the world, because if someone has a particular phobia and they will invest a lot of time trying to find someone that can fix it, and whatever niche that you specialized in, don't be afraid to have niches within niches and have separate landing pages, separate, articles, blog posts around it, because when people have got an issue and they feel that no one can help, they're highly motivated to find someone that knows their experience and that can lead them out of their situation. I've only been a hypnotherapist for about 5-6 years, but to give you an idea of how niching can benefit, if after today's room you went onto Google and you put phobia expert, you'll see me on page 1 of Google, and that is entirely based on just the content that I've created around phobias and lots of different phobias. So whatever your niche is, do likewise, and you'll generate lots of free clients, because that organic search and traffic that you get that you don't have to pay for is always going to be more valuable, because it comes with credibility. Nobody really trusts the paid ads at the top as much as they do when you're actually kind of featured in the content. And that same principle works for any other kind of content. Google is the world's #1 search engine. YouTube is number 2. If you put generic stuff on YouTube, you don't get an audience. If you put niche stuff on there, you're going to come up quite high. So there are cost-effective ways for you to build your brand and engage with potential prospects, because if they're searching for certain stuff, it's because they're motivated to solve the problem, and you can help them realize there is a solution to that problem. So just figure out what your niche is, and if you're not sure, maybe come up with 2 or 3 niches and let the market vote for what they want you to specialize in. Graham, one final question for me, because you know loads of people in the world of hypnosis. What is the most obscure or tiniest niche that you've seen anyone specialize in?
Good question. So it's not necessarily obscure, because I know Justin knows her as well, and Sally. There's a lady called Ilz, and she's a hypno poker coach. She used to be a croupier in a Grosvenor casino, and now she uses her hypnosis skills to be able to hone in on poker players to be able to keep their cool. That's pretty good one, isn't it?
That is a niche within a niche within a niche. I love that. And if I was a professional poker player, I would seek them out. And the thing is, professional poker players, there is a lot at stake at tiny micro expressions and things like that. So if you can help someone do that, that's an invaluable service. I'm sure she makes a lot of money specializing in that particular niche. So that is the one thing we haven't really talked about. You can charge more when you niche, when you specialize, when you actually get good and you've got the evidence and the case studies to back it up that you are an expert in that particular niche. You get to charge more as well, which isn't a bad side effect. So I guess that's it from me. Any final things to add there, Graham?
One small thing I wanted to add is actually, as I mentioned at the start, I host a hypnosis online meetup, which is a CPD package. Small videos every single month, And the person I hosted this month was a guy called Matt Kendall, which you joined on as well, didn't you, Adam? And the content that he hosted, all towards marketing, niche, and everything, is absolutely 10 to none. Would you agree?
It was very useful, and one of the key points he made is to specialize. To kind of pin your colors to the mast or whatever they say, but basically own a particular niche is very useful. To know your target avatar, I think he called it, your target client, and how you can help them and what they've gone through. So all singing off the same hymn sheet there.
This meetup was it was a special event that I had, which was actually free. The replay does, because I post it through a streaming thing, much like Netflix sort of thing. You can get it for what's a third of what my normal replays are. So for £4.99, if you wish to get an eyes on it, hypnosisonlinemeetups.com, you can see it on there. And I'd highly recommend the replay of it. If you're thinking about niching, you just go onto there, hypnosisonlinemeetups.com. You scroll to the bottom, you'll see his face on there, Matt Kendall, marketing. Also, if you want to get more free products, if you go on there, halfway down the page, there's an email capture. Put your details into there. You'll get Barry Neal, who's talking all about NLP, all things NLP, or all things that actually I think it's the one which all things therapists do wrong, and he picks up loads of points and also shares a hell of a lot on NLP. And also the wonderful Melissa Tears, who takes you through a chancy sort of new age journey as well. So some fantastic content on there as well. So Hypnosis. I can see some people starting to finish already. We've just gone past the time. So everyone, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Graham Webber. I'm joined by the amazing Adam Cox and all these wonderful people who are up at the top. And we'll see you all next week. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.